Imagine this. A mother rolls her wheelchair-bound child outside the apartment building just for a few minutes of fresh air. That's when she appears. An HOA Karen. Tight smile. Angry eyes. A rule book in her hand like a weapon. Rules are rules, she snaps, loud enough for everyone to hear. What happens next isn't just an argument. It becomes a life-changing moment. One mistake. One shove. One scream that never fully comes out. The wheelchair tips. The stairs don't forgive. People freeze. Phones stay down. And in seconds, a disabled child lies motionless. For 10 long minutes, there are no sirens. No police. No ambulance. Just shock and silence. Then a black SUV pulls up. The door opens. And the color drains from Karen's face because the man stepping out isn't just anyone. He's her brother, and he's a Navy SEAL. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. Which city are you watching this video from? Drop your city's name in the comments below. I read every single one. And if stories that expose cruelty, injustice, and shocking twists interest you, then make sure you subscribe to the channel right now, because the story you're about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. Now, let's be clear about one thing. This is not just a story about an HOA dispute. This is not just a story about rules, power, or ego. This is a story about how a few seconds of arrogance can destroy a life. About how silence from bystanders can be just as deadly as action. And about how consequences sometimes arrive in ways no one expects. The apartment complex looked peaceful on the outside. Clean sidewalks, trimmed hedges, American flags hanging neatly from balconies. The kind of place where people believe nothing truly bad can happen. But behind those walls lived fear, pressure, and control. An HOA that cared more about appearances than people. A woman who believed rules mattered more than human life. And a mother who was already fighting a daily battle just to keep her child smiling. What happened that afternoon would shatter the illusion of safety forever. By the time the truth came out, friendships were destroyed, careers ended, and one family's world was changed beyond repair. So take a breath, because from this point forward, the story moves fast and every detail matters. Let's begin. The morning started like most mornings did for Emily Carter, slow, careful, and planned down to the smallest detail. Her son, Noah, was 9 years old, bright-eyed, curious, and confined to a wheelchair since the accident 3 years ago. A drunk driver, a red light, 1 second that stole the use of his legs forever. Emily lived on the 3rd floor of a quiet apartment complex in Phoenix, Arizona. It wasn't fancy, but it was supposed to be safe. That's why she chose it. Elevators, ramps, wide hallways. At least, that's what the brochure promised. Reality was different. The elevator had been under maintenance for weeks. The ramp near the parking lot was always blocked by residents who didn't care enough to read the signs. And every request Emily sent to the HOA was either ignored or denied. That HOA had a name everyone in the complex knew. Karen Whitmore. She wasn't officially called Karen, of course. That nickname came later, whispered in hallways, typed in private group chats, spoken with eye rolls and clenched jaws. Her real title was HOA Compliance Officer, but she treated it like a crown. Karen believed rules were sacred. Not people, not circumstances. Rules. Emily had crossed paths with her before. Once, Karen fined her for leaving Noah's wheelchair outside the apartment door for 5 minutes. Another time, she issued a warning because Emily taped a handwritten, "Please don't block the ramp" sign near the parking area. No personal signage allowed, Karen had said coldly. Emily learned quickly. Arguing only made things worse. That afternoon, the Arizona heat was unbearable. Noah had been restless all day, staring out the window. "Mom," he said softly, "can we go outside? Just for a little bit?" Emily hesitated. Taking Noah outside meant navigating stairs. It meant lifting, strain, risk, but it also meant seeing her son smile again, something that had become rare. "I'll take you near the courtyard," she said. "Just 5 minutes." She strapped Noah securely into his wheelchair and carefully guided him down the emergency stairwell, slow step by slow step. Her arms shook, but she didn't stop. When they reached the bottom, Noah laughed. "I like the sun," he said. Emily smiled. That made it worth it. They stopped near the building entrance under partial shade. Noah closed his eyes, letting the breeze brush his face. Emily stood behind him, hands on the handles, protective. That's when she heard the heels. Sharp, fast, angry. "Excuse me." Emily's stomach dropped before she even turned around. Karen Whitmore stood there, clipboard tucked under her arm, lips pressed into a thin line. Sunglasses hid her eyes, but Emily could feel the judgment burning through them. "You're blocking the entrance," Karen said. Emily glanced around. They were off to the side. People could pass easily. "We're not blocking anything," Emily replied calmly. "My son just needed some air." Karen sighed dramatically. "That area is not designated for loitering," she said. "Wheelchairs are not to be left in common walkways." Emily blinked. "He's not left here. I'm right here." Karen took a step closer. "You've already been warned multiple times," she said. "I suggest you comply before this becomes a violation." Noah opened his eyes. "Mom," he asked quietly. Emily felt her chest tighten. "We'll move in a minute," she said. "Please. He's disabled." Karen's jaw clenched. "I don't make exceptions," she snapped. "If I let you do this, everyone will want special treatment." Special treatment. Emily had heard that phrase before, from doctors, from insurance agents, from strangers who had no idea what her life looked like. "I'm asking for basic humanity," Emily said, her voice shaking. "Not special treatment." Karen laughed, a short, dismissive sound. "Don't get emotional," she said. "Rules exist for a reason." She reached for her phone. "I'm issuing a fine," Karen continued, "and if you don't move immediately, I'll call security." Something in Emily broke. "All you care about is rules," she said. "You don't care that this is a child." Karen stepped closer again, too close. "And all you care about is playing the victim," she replied. The air felt heavy. Neighbors slowed their steps. A man across the courtyard watched, uneasy, but said nothing. Emily turned the wheelchair slightly, preparing to leave. That's when Karen grabbed the handle. "Don't ignore me," she said sharply. "Let go," Emily said. Karen didn't. What happened next took less than a second. A forceful tug, a misstep, a wheel caught on the uneven concrete. Emily screamed. The wheelchair lurched forward, toward the stairs they had worked so hard to avoid. "Noah!" Karen's grip slipped. The chair tipped, and then gravity did the rest. The sound was awful, metal, plastic impact. Emily collapsed to her knees, her world shattering in front of her. Noah didn't move. For a moment, no one breathed. Karen stepped back, her face pale. I didn't mean," she stammered. Emily screamed for help. But the damage was already done. And somewhere, far away, a man in a black SUV was about to receive a phone call that would change everything. For a few seconds after the fall, the world didn't react. It froze. Emily crawled down the steps on her knees, her hands slipping against the concrete as she reached Noah. His small body was twisted at an unnatural angle, the wheelchair overturned beside him like a broken shell. "Noah, baby, please," she whispered, her hands shaking as she brushed his hair away from his face. No response. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Someone call 911, she screamed, her voice cracking through the courtyard. People stood there, watching, processing, hesitating. A man fumbled with his phone. A woman covered her mouth. Someone muttered, "Oh my God!" Karen Whitmore stood frozen at the top of the stairs. Her clipboard lay on the ground, her authority gone in an instant. "I didn't push him," she said, mostly to herself. "I didn't. He moved." Emily looked up at her, eyes red, full of something far darker than anger. "You touched him," Emily said. "You touched my child." Karen took a step back. "I was enforcing HOA policy," she said weakly. "This is not my fault." The words echoed in the silence. Emily turned back to Noah. She pressed her ear to his chest, desperate for any sign. A breath. A heartbeat. Anything. "Come on," she whispered. You promised me you'd tell me when you wanted to go home. Nothing. Sirens still hadn't come. Seconds stretched into minutes. A neighbor finally ran toward the street, waving at passing cars, shouting for help. Someone else called emergency services again, their voice panicked. Karen began pacing. This is going to be a legal nightmare, she muttered. This better not come back on me. Emily heard every word. She stood up slowly. You care about yourself, Emily said quietly. That's all you ever cared about. Karen snapped. Don't turn this on me, she said sharply. You're the one who brought a wheelchair into a restricted area. You violated policy. A few people gasped. Others looked away. But one man spoke up. That's enough, he said. You should be ashamed. Karen glared at him. You don't understand how HOAs work, she shot back. If we don't enforce rules, this place turns into chaos. Chaos. Emily laughed, a hollow, broken sound. My son is lying there, and you're talking about chaos? Karen didn't answer. She looked down at her hands, trembling now. The confidence she always carried was cracking, replaced by something closer to fear. Not guilt, fear. 5 minutes passed. Still no sirens. Emily pulled out her phone with shaking fingers and dialed a number she rarely called. It rang once, twice. Then, Emily, a deep voice answered. Calm. Controlled. Mark, she choked. It's Noah. There was an accident. Silence on the other end. Not confusion. Not panic. Focus. Is he breathing? Mark asked. I don't know, she sobbed. He fell. The wheelchair. Where are you? He interrupted. Phoenix. The apartment complex. Building C. Another pause. I'm coming, Mark said. Stay with him. The call ended. Karen overheard the conversation. Who was that? She asked sharply. Emily ignored her. Karen's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and frowned. Then it buzzed again. And again. She stepped away, answering quietly. Yes. No, I didn't. It was an accident. Her voice rose with every sentence. I followed protocol, she insisted. You can't fire me over this. She hung up, breathing hard. That's when she noticed something strange. The air had changed. People were whispering, not about the accident, but about the man Emily had called. Who's Mark? Someone asked. I heard he's military, another said. Someone said he's special forces. No way. Karen scoffed. Everyone knows someone in the military, she muttered. That doesn't scare me. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. 10 minutes after the fall, a low rumble echoed through the parking lot. Not a siren. An engine. A black SUV rolled in slowly, deliberately. Government plates. Tinted windows. The kind of vehicle that didn't belong in an HOA-controlled parking lot. It stopped. The engine shut off. The driver's door opened. A tall man stepped out. Short hair. Calm eyes. Broad shoulders. No uniform. No visible weapon. But something about him made the crowd instinctively move aside. Karen felt it too. Her stomach dropped. She recognized him instantly. Mark, she whispered. Mark Carter didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on the stairs, on the overturned wheelchair, on the child lying motionless in his mother's arms. Emily looked up. Mark crossed the distance in seconds. He knelt beside Noah, assessing him with terrifying efficiency. 2 fingers on the neck, a hand under the chin, controlled breathing. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. Then he opened them and stood up, slowly. The calm on his face was gone. What happened? He asked. No shouting, no threats. But the silence that followed was heavier than any scream. I turned to Karen. She swallowed hard. I was doing my job, she said. There are rules. Mark turned to face her. For the first time, he spoke her name. Karen. Her knees nearly buckled. I warned her, she rushed on. She didn't listen. This isn't my fault. Mark took 1 step toward her. Then another. I spent 20 years enforcing rules, he said evenly, in places where mistakes cost lives. Karen opened her mouth. Mark raised a hand. And I can tell you right now, he continued, his voice cold, this wasn't an accident. Karen's face drained of color. Because in that moment, she realized something terrifying. This wasn't an HOA dispute anymore. This was about to become something far bigger. Karen Whitmore had always believed authority came from being loud, from standing taller, from pointing fingers, from reminding people who had power. But as Mark Carter stood in front of her, she realized something she had never experienced before. Real power doesn't need volume. The courtyard felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. Neighbors who once avoided conflict leaned closer, instinctively drawn to the gravity of the moment. Mark didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He didn't even look angry. That scared Karen more than anything. "Step back," she said, trying to regain control. "You can't intimidate me." Mark looked at her for a long second. "I'm not intimidating you," he replied calmly. "I'm listening." Karen scoffed. "Good," she said quickly. "Then listen carefully. Your wife violated HOA regulations. I warned her multiple times. She refused to comply. This was unfortunate, but what?" Mark asked. Karen hesitated. "But not my fault," she finished. Behind him, Emily sat on the ground, rocking Noah's limp body. Her hands were smeared with blood, she didn't know whose. Mark turned briefly to her. "Emily," he said softly, "help is coming. Stay with me." She nodded, barely conscious of anything else. Mark faced Karen again. "Tell me exactly what you did," he said. "I told her move," Karen snapped. "I told her she was violating policy. I may have touched the wheelchair, but I didn't push it down the stairs." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone spoke up. "You grabbed it," the man said. "We all saw." Karen spun toward him. "You stay out of this." Mark raised a single finger. Karen stopped mid-sentence. "You don't get to decide who speaks anymore," Mark said. "Not today." Karen's lips trembled. "You don't understand," she insisted. "If I don't enforce the rules, I lose my job. People take advantage. You can't let emotions override policy." Mark tilted his head slightly. "You ever been in a war zone?" he asked. Karen blinked. "What? You ever had to choose between following orders and saving a life?" he continued. Karen shook her head, confused. "I have," Mark said. "More times than I can count." He stepped closer, not aggressively but deliberately, and every time he went on, "I learned the same lesson." Karen swallowed. "Rules exist to protect people," Mark said. "The moment they hurt people, they stop being rules." Police sirens finally echoed in the distance. Karen exhaled, relief flooding her face. "Good," she said. "Let the police handle this." Mark didn't react. "You're right," he said. "They will." The first patrol car pulled up. Then another. Paramedics rushed in behind them, equipment in hand. They knelt beside Noah immediately. Emily was gently moved aside. Mark watched silently as they worked. One paramedic looked up at him. "We need to transport him now," she said. "Severe trauma." Mark nodded. "Do everything you can," he said. They loaded Noah onto a stretcher. As they carried him toward the ambulance, Emily tried to follow, but her legs gave out. Mark caught her before she fell. "I'm here," he whispered. Karen watched the scene unfold, her heart pounding. This was bad, but she told herself she'd survive it. She always did. The police officer approached her. "Ma'am," he said, "I need your statement." Karen straightened. "Of course," she said. "I've been waiting." She launched into her rehearsed explanation. Policy violations, warnings, noncompliance. The officer listened quietly. Then he asked, "Did you touch the wheelchair?" Karen hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "Yes," she admitted, "but I didn't push it." The officer nodded and turned to another cop. "Get witness statements," he said. Karen's confidence wavered. One by one, neighbors stepped forward. She grabbed it. She was yelling. She didn't have to touch the chair. The child begged her to stop. Each sentence landed like a hammer. Karen's breathing became shallow. "That's not how it happened," she protested. But no one was looking at her anymore. They were looking at Mark, at the quiet man standing with blood on his hands, staring at the ambulance disappearing down the road. Karen felt a chill crawl up her spine. She recognized that posture. She had seen it once before, years ago, when her brother came home on leave. That same stillness, that same focus. Fear flooded her chest. "Mark," she said cautiously. He turned. "This doesn't have to be personal," she said quickly. "I'm your sister." The word hung in the air. Gasps followed. She's his sister? No way. Oh my God. Mark studied her face like he was seeing it for the first time. You used to stand up for people, he said quietly. Do you remember that? Karen shook her head. I had to change, she said. This world punishes weakness. Mark's eyes hardened. No, he replied. This world punishes cruelty. The officer cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said to Karen, you're being detained pending investigation. Karen laughed nervously. Detained, she said. For what? I didn't commit a crime. The officer didn't argue. He simply reached for his cuffs. That's when Karen panicked. Mark, she cried. Say something. You know me. You know, I didn't mean this. Mark stepped closer. You're right, he said. I know you. Her face lit up, just for a second, and that's why, he continued, I won't protect you. Her expression shattered. You taught me right from wrong, Mark said. Today you chose wrong. The cuffs clicked shut. Karen's knees buckled as reality finally hit her. As the police led her away, she looked back one last time. Mark wasn't watching her. He was already walking toward his car, toward the hospital, toward his son. And for the first time in her life, Karen realized something she could never find control or silence. Consequences had arrived, and this was only the beginning. The hospital lights were too bright. Emily sat rigid in a plastic chair outside the trauma unit, her hands folded so tightly together that her knuckles had turned white. A nurse had cleaned the blood from her arms, but the feeling of it was still there, sticky, warm, impossible to forget. Across from her, Mark stood motionless, staring at the closed double doors marked authorized personnel only. He hadn't said much since they arrived. Men like Mark Carter didn't fall apart in public. They absorbed. They calculated. They waited. A doctor finally emerged. Emily stood so fast the chair fell backward. How is he? She asked, her voice breaking. The doctor hesitated. A pause that lasted half a second too long. He's alive, he said carefully, but he has a severe head injury. Swelling in the brain. Internal bleeding. Emily covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. We've stabilized him, the doctor continued, but the next 24 hours are critical. Mark nodded slowly. Can we see him? He asked. Briefly, the doctor replied. Inside the ICU, Noah looked smaller than ever. Tubes, wires, machines breathing for him. Emily collapsed beside the bed, clutching Noah's hand. I'm here, baby, she whispered. Mom's here. Mark stood at the foot of the bed, jaw tight, fists clenched at his sides. He had faced enemy fire, explosions, loss. None of it felt like this. Outside the room, 2 police officers waited. One of them cleared his throat. Mr. Carter, he said, we'll need to speak with you. Mark stepped into the hallway. What's going on, he asked. The officer exchanged a look with his partner. There's pressure, the officer admitted. The HOA's legal team is already involved. They're claiming this was an unfortunate accident due to non-compliance. Mark's eyes narrowed. And my sister, he asked. She's been released pending further review. The officer said, quietly. Mark didn't move. Released, he repeated. Yes, sir. She lawyered up immediately. No prior criminal record. HOA is claiming liability waivers. For the first time that day, anger flashed openly across Mark's face. So she almost kills a child, he said coldly, and goes home? The officer lowered his voice. I don't agree with it, he said, but this is how the system works sometimes. Mark stared at the wall for a long moment. Then he nodded. Thank you for being honest, he said. The officers left. Emily emerged from a room. They let her go. She asked, having overheard just enough. Mark didn't lie. Yes. Emily's legs gave out. She leaned against the wall, tears streaming. She's going to get away with it, Emily whispered. Just like every other time. Mark knelt in front of her, forcing her to look at him. No, he said firmly. She won't. But you said you wouldn't protect her, Emily cried. And now? I won't protect her, Mark interrupted, but I also won't let the truth get buried. That night, while Emily slept in a chair beside Noah's bed, Mark sat in the hospital cafeteria with his phone out. He made calls. Not emotional ones. Not threatening ones. Strategic ones. By morning, things started moving. A witness video surfaced. Someone had been recording from their balcony. It showed Karen grabbing the wheelchair. Clear. Undeniable. Another resident came forward with emails, proof that Karen had ignored repeated requests to fix the elevator and ramps. A former HOA employee contacted Mark anonymously. "She's done this before," the message read. "Threats. Intimidation. Power trips. It was only a matter of time." Local news picked up the story. HOA enforcer detained after disabled child falls downstairs. By noon, Karen Whitmore's name was everywhere. At her house, Karen sat on her couch, watching the news in disbelief. "This is being blown out of proportion," she told her lawyer. "They're painting me like a monster." Her lawyer didn't look convinced. "Public opinion is turning fast," he said, "and your brother's military background is adding fuel." Karen's voice cracked. "He wouldn't do this to me," she said. "He's my brother." Back at the hospital, Mark watched the same news clip silently. Emily sat beside him. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked softly. Mark didn't look away from the screen. "Because," he said, "systems protect people like her. Someone has to protect people like Noah." As if on cue, Noah's heart monitor beeped irregularly. Nurses rushed in. Emily's breath caught. The doctor returned minutes later. "The swelling is increasing," he said. "We need to operate. Now." Emily nodded frantically. "Please," she begged. "Please save him." As Noah was rushed into surgery, Mark stood in the hallway alone. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You don't know how powerful she is. Let this go." Mark typed a reply. "You don't know who I am." He put the phone away and looked toward the operating room. For the first time since the accident, fear crept in. Not fear of losing control, but fear of losing his son. And far away, Karen Whitmore felt something she had never felt before. The rules weren't protecting her anymore, and the fight was no longer one-sided. The surgery lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of pacing. 6 hours of silent prayers. 6 hours where time felt cruelly suspended. Emily sat on the floor outside the operating room, her back against the wall, eyes swollen from crying. She hadn't eaten. She hadn't slept. She barely remembered how to breathe. Mark stood nearby, arms crossed, staring at the red surgery in progress light like it was an enemy he could intimidate into submission. But this was one battle he couldn't fight with discipline or force. Only patience. At 3:17 a.m., the doors finally opened. The surgeon walked out, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Emily scrambled to her feet. "Please," she whispered, "please tell me he's okay." The surgeon exhaled slowly. "We removed the bleeding," he said. "The pressure is down. He's stable for now." Emily collapsed into Mark's arms, sobbing. But the surgeon continued gently, "There may be lasting damage. We won't know for days." Mark nodded once. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." As Noah was moved back into the ICU, something else was happening across town. Karen Whitmore sat at her dining table, surrounded by paperwork, HOA bylaws, legal documents, emails printed in desperation. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Unknown numbers, missed calls, voicemails she was afraid to listen to. Her lawyer paced. "You should have stayed quiet," he said. "But now, witnesses are coming forward." "They're lying," Karen snapped. "They hate me because I enforce rules." Her lawyer stopped pacing and looked at her. "No," he said. "They hate you because you forgot you were dealing with human beings." Karen slammed her hand on the table. "You don't get it," she hissed. "If I show weakness, I lose control." Her lawyer sighed. "You already have." At that moment, her phone rang. Mark. Her breath caught. She answered. "What do you want?" she demanded, forcing strength into her voice. "I want you to listen," Mark said calmly. "For once." Karen laughed bitterly. "You think you're some hero," she said, "using your reputation to destroy me?" Mark didn't react. "No," he replied. "You destroyed yourself. I'm just not cleaning it up for you anymore." Karen's voice shook. "He's alive, isn't he?" she asked. "So, why are you doing this?" There was a pause. Then Mark said something that silenced her completely. "Because he woke up screaming your name." Karen felt the room spin. He can't even walk, Mark continued, and you're the thing he's afraid of. Tears welled in Karen's eyes, but she wiped them away angrily. This isn't fair, she whispered. I didn't mean to hurt him. Mark's voice hardened. Intent doesn't erase impact, he said. And the truth is coming. He ended the call. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. Media vans lined the street. Cameras flashed as Karen Whitmore arrived with her lawyer, head down, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Inside, witnesses took the stand, one by one. A mother who had been fined for her autistic son's noise. A veteran threatened for parking violations. Emails showing Karen dismissing accessibility concerns. Then came the video. The screen froze on the exact moment Karen's hand grabbed the wheelchair. Gasps filled the room. Karen's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Karen's composure cracked. Across the room, Mark sat beside Emily, his hand steady on hers. Noah wasn't there. He was still unconscious. But his presence filled the room anyway. When Karen finally took the stand, her confidence was gone. I was just doing my job, she said weakly. I followed policy. The prosecutor leaned forward. Ms. Whitmore, she asked, when did policy become more important than a child's life? Karen had no answer. Outside the courtroom, the headlines spread like wildfire. HOA officer charged in disabled child injury case. By evening, the HOA board released a statement, suspending Karen indefinitely. Then came resignations, investigations, federal involvement regarding ADA violations. The system that once shielded her was now distancing itself. At the hospital, Noah stirred for the first time. Emily gasped as his fingers twitched. Noah, she whispered. His eyes fluttered open. Mom, he murmured faintly. Emily sobbed, pressing her forehead to his. I'm here, she cried. You're safe. Mark watched from the doorway, relief flooding through him so powerfully his knees nearly gave out. Noah turned his head slightly. Is the mean lady gone? He asked. Mark stepped forward. Yes, he said gently. She can't hurt you anymore. Noah nodded, then closed his eyes again. Outside the room, Emily hugged Mark tightly. You didn't just save my son, she said through tears. You saved so many others. Mark shook his head. No, he said. You did, by refusing to stay silent. As night fell, Karen Whitmore sat alone in her house, watching her name scroll across the news one last time. Rules, power, control. None of it mattered now, because for the first time in her life, she couldn't enforce her way out of the truth. And the final consequences were still coming. 3 weeks later, the apartment complex looked the same on the outside. Same beige walls, same trimmed hedges, same HOA sign at the entrance. But inside, everything had changed. The elevator was finally fixed. Ramps were cleared and repainted bright yellow. New signs appeared. Accessibility is not optional. Not because the HOA suddenly found compassion, because they found fear. Fear of lawsuits, fear of exposure, fear of becoming the next headline. Emily stood in the courtyard for the first time since the accident, Noah beside her in his wheelchair. He was thinner now, quieter. A faint scar curved along his hairline, a permanent reminder of what happened. But he was alive, and that mattered more than anything. Mom, Noah said softly, this place feels different. Emily smiled sadly. That's because people are finally paying attention. Across town, Karen Whitmore sat in a small conference room, hands folded tightly in her lap. Gone were the designer clothes. Gone was the clipboard. Gone was the authority. She wore a plain blouse. No makeup. No confidence. The judge read the sentence calmly. Ms. Whitmore, your actions showed reckless disregard for human life. While the court acknowledges you did not intend to cause severe injury, intent does not excuse negligence. Karen's lawyer squeezed her arm. Therefore, the judge continued, you are sentenced to 18 months in state custody, followed by probation, mandatory counseling, and permanent removal from any HOA or property management authority. The gavel struck. Just like that, it was over. Karen closed her eyes. No rules to hide behind. No system to shield her. No one to blame. Later that evening, Mark sat alone on a bench outside the hospital. Noah had been cleared to go home in a few days. Emily was inside packing up. Mark stared at his hands. For the first time in years, they trembled. Emily joined him quietly. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, then shook his head. "I've faced people who did far worse things," he said. "But this hit different." Emily sat beside him. "Because this wasn't a battlefield," she said. "It was supposed to be home." Mark nodded slowly. "I used to think justice meant force," he admitted. "Orders, authority, consequences." Emily looked at him. "And now, I think justice means speaking up," he said. "Especially when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's family." Emily reached for his hand. "You did the hardest thing," she said. "You chose what was right over who was blood." Mark exhaled. "I lost a sister that day," he said quietly. Emily shook her head. "No," she replied gently. "She lost you." Weeks passed. The case became a landmark example in Arizona. HOA policies statewide were reviewed. Accessibility laws were reinforced. Training programs became mandatory. All because one child fell and people refused to look away. Noah returned to school. On his first day back, his teacher knelt beside him. "We're glad you're here," she said. Noah smiled shyly. "I'm brave," he said. "Yes," she replied. "You are." One afternoon, Noah asked Mark a question. "Are you a superhero?" he asked. Mark chuckled. "No," he said. "I just didn't stay quiet." Noah thought about that. "I think that's better," he said. Mark smiled. Months later, Emily started a foundation, Noah's Way, advocating for disabled rights in housing communities. The support poured in. Stories came from all over the country. People who had been fined, threatened, ignored. Now, they weren't silent anymore. And Karen Whitmore? She sat in a small prison library one afternoon, reading an article about the foundation. She closed the magazine slowly. For the first time, she understood something she never had before. Rules without empathy are weapons, and power without accountability is dangerous. That lesson came too late. As the sun set outside the prison window, Karen finally cried, not for herself, but for the child whose life she changed forever. Back at the apartment complex, Emily wheeled Noah toward the exit. "Ready to go home?" she asked. Noah nodded. As they passed the HOA sign, Noah looked up at it. "Mom," he asked. "Yes, sweetheart. Rules are supposed to help people, right?" Emily smiled, blinking back tears. "Yes," she said. "They are." They walked on, and somewhere in the quiet space between justice and mercy, the truth remained clear. You don't need a uniform to do the right thing. You just need the courage to stand up, even when it costs you everything. If this story moved you, even a little, don't scroll away. Hit like so more people see stories like this. Subscribe if you believe silence helps injustice survive. And comment below, what city are you watching from? Because awareness saves lives. And your voice matters more than you think.